What's good, tribe? I am Sika, the director of the Black Lunch Break in Music and Entertainment, and welcome back to another episode of the Black Lunch Break. Now, this episode is going to be just a tad bit different. My bro Cirillo wasn't able to join us, but in Black with No Chaser tribe style, I got my sis Celestial escorting me during this episode too with Kramer Wimberely from Enslaved Documentary. Now, if you don't know what Enslaved Documentary is, let me just give you a quick rundown. All right, so Samuel L. Jackson came out with this documentary. It's a dope piece of work. I'm talking about hella dope. Now, what is he doing exactly? Well, he teams up with DWP. What is DWP? It's diving with a purpose, and we have some black divers out there. Now, I know there's like this misconception about black people, water, whether we swim or not, all of that kinds of things, but I found it very interesting that Celestial, my Black with No Chaser sister, introduced me into Black divers, which she is one as well. And I thought that it was super dope that Samuel L. Jackson found it to be of importance for him to trace back his ancestry. So he took the time to carve out some time in his schedule, go on adventures, visit his land where he is from. And all of that culminated into him wanting to discover missing slave ships that have sunken. So, DWP, they come into play. Enslaved, the documentary, is a very, very heavy piece of work. And considering that we are in Black History Month, we figured that it was a very important conversation that we held with Kramer so that he could just give us a good insight on what it was like to feel the essence and the presence of our ancestors as he's diving in these waters and searching for these artifacts and searching for these sunken ships. All of the episodes are very touching. It's very real. It's very eye opening. And especially this episode is extremely eye opening. What I took from this episode is even on our hardest day of life, it cannot be compared to probably the easiest day for a life being a slave. And I just want you guys to tap in. I want you to enjoy what he has to share with us. And most of all, just appreciate the moments and the Black figures that we have out here that's out here doing the work to discover things for us that we probably don't have the courage to discover for ourselves. We need people like this in the community, and we also need to pay homage to these type of people that are putting their lives on the line so that we can gather information that has been hidden or erased from us. So, with that being said, let's roll on into this interview. I hope you enjoy, and I'll see you on the other end of this interview. All right. Now, we're entering Black History Month, and I find it very, very important that our audience pays deep attention to people that are out there actually searching for artifacts that are connecting us to our ancestry. So, could you tell us a little bit about the decision to join the enslaved movement?
Sure. All right. Prior to Enslaved, I'm a board member for an organization called Diving with a Purpose, right? And one of their lead instructors. Diving with a Purpose is an organization that was founded on the premise of locating a particular the slave ship Guerrero, that wrecked off of the Florida Keys back in 1827. All right. Uh, I was I don't want to say I was drug kicking and screaming into the work. Um, the I'm sorry, I stumbled into the work. I've been a diver for almost 35 years. Uh, and I'm also a member of the National Association of Black Scuba Divers. Right? The National Association of Black Scuba Divers, right? The majority of their members are also members of Diving with a Purpose. Right? There was actually the regional director at the time, one of the regional directors at the time, was asked to work on or be a part of the documentary associated with finding the slave ship Guerrero. some 17, 18 years ago. And as a result of being part of that documentary, um, he got an opportunity to meet the lone archaeologist who was working in Biscayne National Park. They developed a relationship. And she indicated, as the lone archaeologist, as divers, we dive in buddy pairs. And she didn't have a buddy to dive with often, right? So she couldn't do surveying for many of the wrecks that existed in the national park. And she was working on trying to locate this particular slave ship. So Ken Stewart, the coordinator for the program and the regional director at the time, asked if anybody could do it. And she said she'll teach anybody who wants to learn. And he said, okay. He went home, got in contact with a bunch of his friends who were from NABS, National Association of Black Scuba Divers, and said, instead of just diving for fun, why don't we dive for a purpose and find this slave ship? And Diving with a Purpose was born. A couple of years after that, I got involved with Diving with a Purpose because it seemed like something different in the area of diving, and something in line with what my professional background was, which was crime scene investigation. And
Okay.
I kind of fell into the work. So that's me and Diving with a Purpose, right? So I've been doing that for a number of years, working with that organization, and we've located and identified a number of ships that existed in the Biscayne National Park and the National Marine Sanctuary. It's a same body of water, but it's separated, and the National Park Service controls one portion of it, and NOAA controls another portion of it. So we work with both agencies, exploring and identifying ships that went down of historical significance. And Guerrero is one of those ships. But not knowing exactly where it is, the organization Diving with a Purpose has been doing the work with the national park and NOAA to discover every ship that they've been able to come in contact with, to identify them, one, to see if it is the Guerrero, or two, to remove it from the possibility of being the Guerrero. So we've surveyed a number of vessels, right? And we are still looking for the final resting place of the slave ship Guerrero. We're very close. There's only one additional area, the southern part of the national park, that needs to be surveyed before a determination can be made to say, okay, we've found a number of things, right, that are consistent with the location of the final resting place, but we can't say for certain that that is it until we've removed every other possibility. And that's one of the last steps to the work for finding Guerrero.
So let me ask you this. As far as some of the locations where the water was too murky, for instance, I believe in Suriname, it was too sandy for you to see. Are there any plans on doing any additional research with that, or is that just gonna be what it is?
No, there are still plans, actually, on the part of the private and government sector to go back and excavate that area. It's a costly endeavor, and potentially a destructive one, right? Because by its nature, the work that the archaeologists engage in is destructive, right? In order to find and identify. So there is a plan to go back and excavate, right? But because of the significance of the work on that, well, on all of those ships that carried ended up being the final resting places of many peoples. You have to be very definitive, right, in what the plan is and how it is that you're going to go about it. But yes, there's a plan to work on excavating the Lewiston. Right.
Okay, that's I'm very excited about that one because that episode had me kind of enthralled in wanting to see something so bad. And I know, like you said, it's very risky as far as the environment is concerned. And I mean, your guys' safety is the most important. I forgot what Celestial told me how far you guys are supposed to go down, but could you remind me, like, what's the deepest that is suggested for you guys to go?
Well, most of the ships were involved in some type of wrecking event, right? And most of them wrecked on some coral reef, which are close to shore, and it ended up being in shallow water. They didn't realize that it was as shallow as it was. There was a wrecking event, and then the ship was lost. Suriname, Guerrero, the London. So typically, you're going to find those in less than 60 feet of water.
Okay.
The wreck in the English Channel, right, was in about 330 feet of water, right? But we used professional technical divers to do that dive at that depth.
Okay. So, Celestial, can you tell me a little bit about the experience that you had when Kramer got to come and speak with your children?
Sure. So I have a nonprofit called Much Bigger World Incorporated, and I'm a certified diver. And one of the things we do every summer is to get students certified as divers through PADI. And when I found out about DWP, it was as a result of watching a National Geographic piece that I came across on Facebook. Had never heard of DWP, and I was so excited that there was this other organization not only diving, but they were diving slave shipwrecks. Like, I was blown away by that. And I reached out to one of the founding members who Kramer already mentioned, Kenneth Stewart, and very cool cat. You know, he immediately said, yes, we'll send somebody to come talk to your kids. And we've actually maintained contact, and he's brought me into some other projects, but he sent Kramer down to talk to my kids. And number one, I would just want to say Kramer is extremely good with children. He knows how to connect with kids. And he came down and he talked about what DWP does, number one, but he also talked about diving those slave shipwrecks and what that experience feels like. And he made an impact on the kids and the adults that were able to come. You know, there are people who want to dive but don't know how to swim, but they're just so amazed by the whole process and everything. They reach out to me and say, hey, when can we learn how to dive? Well, you got to learn how to swim first. I can't until you learn how to swim. And at the time when he came to the kids, I think you all had wrapped Enslaved, but it was not out yet. It didn't come out until 2019 or 2020. I'm sorry. Yeah. So, is it okay, Sika, if I ask him a question based on me watching Enslaved?
Absolutely, absolutely.
That wasn't content I had been familiar with. Kramer, could you talk about the whole series, number one, was very impactful to me. Like, it was very emotional for me to watch. And there were things that I learned that I didn't know and hadn't yet, like, I had never seen what was used as currency to purchase us. I didn't know that's how they paid for our people. But could you talk about, there were two moments in particular. One was when you all did that 300-foot dive and you recovered that tusk. Mm-hmm. And the other was when you all visited, and I don't say the wrong place, but it was where the sugar mill was, or the sugar cane mill. Can you talk about those two experiences, because they really seem to impact the team a little more than some of the other sites?
Well, right. The Tusk was in the English Channel, and it was a physical reminder, right, of the trade itself, right, and that there was more value associated with the tusk than there was with the human beings who were on those ships. And you know that those tusks were oftentimes hauled hundreds of miles, right, on the shoulders of those Africans who were also enslaved or being enslaved. So to see the tusk was a representation of the pain associated with the hauling of the tusk, right? The currency, right, and the value associated with the tusk in relationship to the Africans that carried it, right? And the wicked inhumanity of the people who engaged in the entire process. So it was an emotional experience at the time, right? And we all had different emotions, right? Alana was wearing hers on her sleeve. You could physically see it, right? And that's why I could see it building. And that's when that moment happened. For me, it was because of government regulations in the English Channel. You're not allowed to bring anything up from the bottom using machinery. It has to be brought up by hand, manually. The act of hauling that tusk for me was similar to, though nowhere near as significant as, those who had to haul the tusk against their will, right? I was helping to bring it up to tell the story, right? But at the same time, the physicality of hauling it was reminiscent of, I was thinking of those Africans who were forced to put it on their backs for hundreds of miles through the jungle and then continue on with their enslavement. So it was a very emotional experience, but mine was more rage. All right. So that was the tusk. And your second was?
Was that the sugar cane?
The sugar cane, right? The area where we were, right? At the time we were there was all jungle, right? And we had machetes hacking through the jungle in order to get to that that place. 100 years prior to that, the area had all been cleared, right, for hundreds of acres, because that was where the sugar was grown, right? So to see nature, right, taking over and taking it back, right? Again, thinking in terms of my criminal investigation background, right? The crime scene was being covered up, right? Um, but again, physical pieces of our history, right? That you can touch, right? That tell a horrible story, right? In those areas, they brought in and planted cactus, right, around the plantation to ensure, right, that people who didn't have shoes, right, could not escape.
I
They
call that
kept,
the original barbed
yeah,
wire fence.
yeah, they kept a machete, right, on the machine, on the press, right, just in case someone's hand got trapped. Not to be humane, to say, okay, we've got to make sure the whole body doesn't go in, but if they go in, it's going to disrupt the wheels and stop the production. So discard that so that we can keep things moving. Right? Again, just another manifestation of the inhumanity. Right? And all because, right, actually, right, it was all for money. Right? That was the impetus behind the entirety of the transatlantic slave trade. Right? Um, but the psychology of people, right, across the globe, right, to be able to say, we're going to designate this group of people, right, because they carry a bit more melanin and they can be identified, right, and say, okay, you're not human because we need to make money on this. And the remnants of that still exist today. Right? People today still believe, right, that this outward, um, insignificant, right, superficial characteristic is determinative of something other than your muscles are different from mine, your organs are different from mine, your eyes is not. I'm sorry.
No. You're going in the right direction because this is a important conversation for people to have to think about. We don't put enough thought process into the details. And I'm pretty sure being a part of DWP has made you not only think about the details, but actually be a part of the details, which takes a lot of emotional support and emotional strength to do that. So with that being said, what is your go to reground yourself after you have experienced these type of dives and having to experience things like carrying the tusk and feeling that anguish and that anger and the realization of our people actually doing that on a daily basis? How do you reground? How do you regroup to be able to go on the next journey? And I already noticed I know your answer is going to be, well, I'm called to do this, and you know that you're doing what you're supposed to do. But what is the groundwork for you to get that strength to regain it again? Because that's tough. That's heavy.
That is, and people say this all the time, right? But that is a very good question, right? And the simple answer is, the thing that continues to reground me every time, right, is that it's not about me, right? Um, there were 12 million of my people, right, that were trafficked. There were over 2 million of them that died en route, whose stories have yet to be told, right? The horror of those stories, the brutal murders, the rapes of men, women, and children, right? The slaughter. Um, me feeling pain, me feeling frustration, me feeling anger, right? There's no other word than inconsequential that I could use, right? To talk about my relationship in terms of what it is that took place, right? It's telling the story of those people, my people, right? So when I feel tired, right, like, okay, tired really, right? When I feel frustrated or angry or in pain, really, right? I'm standing on the shoulders of those who came before me, right? Um, I'm a former firefighter also, right? 30 years in the fire service in Newark, New Jersey, right? And a member of the International Association of Black Professional Firefighters, right? Our motto, right, is all I am, I owe. I live eternally in the red. I am eternally indebted to those people who came before me, right? And, ooh, you just got me.
Don't feel bad. You got me too on that.
Mhm.
I
Your
fought
question.
mine. So yes, it's our ancestors.
Mhm.
That's what it is. Yes, we are indebted, and you are right. Your answer was beautiful, to be honest with you. Like, we can't necessarily consider ourselves a tired people because our feelings and emotions are unmatched to what they have gone through.
Mhm.
There's no comparison, and it isn't about you. And I'm glad that you understand that, and I'm glad that you are walking in that, because you are definitely sharing a piece of history that some of us would have never thought to go and search for. And it only just has our minds just wondering even more about what else we are missing. And that's a beautiful thing in itself. And I know our ancestors are proud that we want to continue the search, because it's a never ending search that plenty of us do not mind being on. I don't mind being on this journey, learning these stories and learning the pieces that belong to us and always has belonged to us.
Mhm.
Celestial, do you have a question for him before we let him go? Although I'm enjoying this conversation so much.
Yes. So, okay, we've seen DWP on National Geographic. We've seen you all participate in Enslaved. What's on the horizon for DWP? What's coming next? What can we look for?
Thank you. Right. Because I have, during the course of this interview, I have failed to communicate that DWP is a massive little nonprofit organization, right, with a bunch of volunteers, right, who come together to do this work, right, from a variety of backgrounds. We have a host of doctors, engineers, architects, lawyers, and musicians, uh, biologists, and the average person who wants to engage to be able to say, I played some small part in moving the needle forward. So I have to make sure that I acknowledge all of the wonderful people who started the organization and continue the work and all of those new people, because the coordinator for the program, Ken Stewart, is also the founder of the Tennessee Aquatic Project, and Celestial knows him very well. Right? And he loves kids. So after DWP was formed, he formed a YDWP, Youth Diving with a Purpose, right? Because we're all old people, and his passion has always been for children. The youth in YDWP commit to a 3-year. They make a 3-year commitment to the program to continue to come back. And many of them, starting from 16 on to 22, 23. So we track them and support them throughout their high school and college careers. And then they come back and end up helping out, right? And some of them have, well, actually, most of them have done amazing things in a short period of time, right? So I have to give accolades to all of the kids in youth diving with a purpose, or the young adults, right? Because they're getting ready to take the mantle, right? And let me rest. Wonderful things. We are working on a number of things all at the same time, right? DWP has done work not only in the Florida in the national park, but with NOAA, and not just the marine sanctuary, but in Thunder Bay, we were partners with NOAA and another organization up there, and we actually excavated one of the Tuskegee Airmen's fighter jets that went down in Thunder Bay. So we're doing a memorial up there. Actually, that was supposed to have happened last year, but COVID. So we've created a memorial, and we're having it placed there. So that's on the horizon. We are in partnership with nonprofits, one that's in Costa Rica. So we're doing the youth that were working in one of the episodes in Costa Rica. We are still down there working with them, and we hope to develop a satellite site for Diving with a Purpose in Costa Rica soon. We do our work is not only in cultural but natural resources, and we have a Diving with a Purpose collective approach to restoring our ecosystems program, where we go and do coral monitoring work in the Florida Keys and in the Caribbean. So that's work that we are currently engaged in, and with the support of donors and people who believe in the work. We've only really scratched the surface of looking for the upwards of 1,000 ships that had a wrecking event associated with the transatlantic slave trade. Right. So 5 have been found and surveyed so far. So the breadth of the work that still needs to be done is massive. So, right, for any of your listeners, please go on to our website, divingwithapurpose.org, and donate so that we can continue to do the work.
And we at Black horrible echo. And we at Black with No Chaser, we definitely support everything with Driving with a Purpose, and we are definitely seconding everything that you just said. We definitely want people to get engaged, get involved, and make sure that they do donate to the cause, because 5 out of 1,000, yes,
a lot of work.
A lot to do. Yes, that is a lot. So before we let you go, I'll leave with one last question, and that question is: when you hear Black with No Chaser, what comes to mind?
the first thing that comes to my mind is coffee, right? Unadulterated coffee, right? Strong and invigorating. And that's what I think I just got.
I love it. I love it.
Mhm.
Beautiful response. And this was a beautiful conversation. Thank you both for joining me.
I feel like I should be dancing in a minute.
It did sound like a DJ or something.
Okay.
Yes, but thanks again. My name is SIKA. I'm the director of Black Lunch Break, and we are very excited to have you on for season 3 of the Black Lunch Break. And this is a wonderful episode for Black History Month. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Take care.
Take care. Thank you so much for joining us today for episode 2 of season 3, the Black Lunch Break. It was a wonderful episode. We enjoyed the conversations and the jewels that were dropped, and we hope that you enjoyed it too. So do us a favor. If you enjoyed this broadcast, share it. Not only do you need to share it, but invite some people. Come over here and just watch some great legendary jewels being dropped here on Black with No Chaser. Once again, my name is SIKA. I'm the director of the Black Lunch Break as well as the director of music and entertainment. I thoroughly enjoy having these conversations with everyone that takes the time to come to Black with No Chaser to drop some jewels on the Black Lunch Break. It's never taken for granted. This is an honor, and I appreciate you, the audience. Without y'all, we wouldn't be here for season 3. So once again, make sure you're following us on all platforms. It's Black with No Chaser, Black with No Chaser ME. Black with No Chaser Radio, Happy Healthy Black. Get your full scholarship to Them Hands University. Go to our merch shop and grab you a couple of pieces. We got plenty of things that's waiting on you. And as always, follow the website. We have a lot of great articles written over there by our head writer Leslie, and we have some other dope pieces that's dropping on the website. You just gotta, stay tapped in. We are always tapped in with you, Tribe, and we just appreciate you always being tapped in with us. So with that being said, SIKA is out of here, but before we get out of here, just always know your blackness is safe here at Black with No Chaser, where we think black, we live black, unapologetically. I'm out.